Crazy Rich Asians, was it a good movie or was it a grossly disgusting movie filled with rich people?
I think we know where you stand, Michael.
Yeah, really. I was going to say, what do you think?
What do you really think, Michael? You answer.
I kind of went in knowing it lived up to the expectation I had that it was going to be. Some parts were really cool to see, but a lot of it was like a Hollywood film. It was like, so. I mean, now you have. I'll talk about all this representation. That's great, but it's not exactly breaking new ground, and it is a little. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about the whole class issues in the film?
Well, I mean, I see where you're coming from, right? I mean, I get it, but I think it's a well-made movie. And ultimately, you watch it, you can come in. I mean, I was kind of coming in a hardcore Marxist, thinking this is going to be some Sex and the City for Asians, right? But in reality, you spend a pretty decent time watching it. I think as a rom-com, it has a good economy of means. The way it's told, it's a well-told tale. That's really what it is. And ultimately, I think that's what the audience liked, and that's why people keep showing up for it. Obviously, I think the fact that it has this all-Asian cast at a time when there's a fierce debate about who should be on screen, who's American, right? What's America? Who's America? Like Sacha Baron Cohen would say. So to me, it's an important film.
I mean, as a big fan of, I love all the Asian oldies, that.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of that in the soundtrack, and I thought that was really cool. And they didn't subtitle them or talk about them. And there was actually an article that talked about this, that talked about how one of the cool things in the film is that they don't explain everything. They leave it because, hey, that's just culture. The whole thing with the mahjong game, which I really did like. I thought, like the article said, it's not, in that sense, it wasn't fetishizing.
It's not didactic. They're not. Oh, this is what the Asians do.
Exactly.
Like,
it's just saying that's the way things are. So when they did things like that, that was more genuinely interesting. And then when it just went with the formula, it did it very well and it was entertaining, but that wasn't as interesting.
Right. Well, I think you can be critical. I mean, as an Asia film programmer, as both Asian film programmers, it's like. I mean, it's not an Asian product in the strict sense of the term. It's Asia based, but it's an American movie.
Absolutely,
like you insist a lot on the Hollywood aspects, and I guess that's probably what you don't like about it. It's in a way is a gross celebration of wealth. It's sort of like this middle class. Getting to upper middle class person who's getting her crazy rich Asian prince, and in a sense it's like, is that really a good tale? I'm not. That's what it is. That's your problem with it, right?
The thing is that there is Asian representation in independent cinema that is not as high profile. Like, for example, what was that movie Columbus, which has an Asian male star, or what's another film I'm thinking of? There was another Asian American, or even like something like, what was that movie called, Gook? It's an Asian American film, and it's going deeper places than this does. This is the thing about this that's got everyone swooning, is that it's a mainstream breakthrough
film. That's why people are excited.
Yeah, and then the question is, could you make a mainstream picture with whatever kind of representation that's a little deeper?
You can.
Is diversity a selling point?
I think it is. I think it was an engine. That's how a marketing engine. That's how you got a lot of people to attend the first week. But at some point, you reach a critical mass, and then it becomes mainstream. So I think it was a selling point. But at the same time, it's just ideology is a big. That's a seat filler. That's why people went to see it in the first place. I think a lot of Asians were proud to see themselves on screen, and in this sense I think it's very positive. Now, having said that, I mean, if we want to be critical, it's true, like for people who have been to Singapore, who know Southeast Asia, it's a very problematic movie. And I read this article recently called Al Jazeera, I believe, about the sham there's
Right,
something fake
right.
about
I
it.
read
It's
that
not
article.
really Singapore. You look at it and it's like, I mean, Singapore has a lot of South Asians in there, and you only see them, like the representation of Indians, for example, is a failure. I mean, it's not, I mean, I laughed at the time, but I was like, it's a little bit awkward at the same time. The security guards, ouchie, not a great move.
I've been to
so-
Singapore. I haven't been to any places like those rich houses. The movie is hyperbolic fantasy for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they have Ken Jeong and Aquafina,
Jeong,
they're
yeah.
like court. I mean, they were great. They're really funny, but they're like dressed like court jesters. At the one part that seemed like sort of like the Singapore that I saw when I was there was the scene when they get there and they go to the food court, and then that's it. And I don't know if that was just like a token scene to say this is actually Singapore and now we can go crazy rich, or
Yeah, I don't, and I also don't know, like, again, I think it's a successful film for what it does. You see it's a romance. If you just see it purely as a romance within the confines of the genre, it's great. It's good. It's very entertaining. It does what it's supposed to do. I went out of the theater in a pretty good mood, But if you nitpick, there's a lot to nitpick about. There's a ton to nitpick about. The casting is problematic, but I think there's several failures in there. Like failure to represent Singapore accurately. There's a certain idea of what the Chinese are like, the Chinese Singaporeans. Could be done better. There's allocation of time. The fact that the supporting cast is often a lot more interesting than the leads. The leads are surprisingly bland. If that's the image of Asian America that's offered by Hollywood, I'm like, is that really what it is? I don't know, and it's interesting because it perpetuates the fact that the supporting cast is so good, perpetuates a certain idea of what's acceptable and what's funny about Asian Americans. Like, oh yeah, the Asian Americans, they do well with comedy, right? Like the Margaret Cho is like sort of half mainstream, and it continues in the same direction. So does it really break new ground? I'm not so sure. Like, people come out of the theater, they don't really talk about Constance Wu or Henry Golding. They speak about Aquafina and Ken Jeong and their comedic abilities. So that's nothing new. We've seen Asians in comedy for a long time now, and I think it breaks new ground in the sense that it possibly they're going to become even more popular, so that's positive. But the leads definitely were a disappointment to me. Okay, that's it. So I have to say.
Let's wrap it up.